students, welcome to Narayana IS. I'm Pratik, your presenter for Daily News Analysis. Students, as part of our Daily News Analysis, we are going to discuss on 5 important articles and editorials from the Hindu and the Indian Express. The first topic to discuss is pointers from wheat. Now students, in this topic, we are going to understand the difference between Green Revolution, the first Green Revolution, and Green Revolution 2.0. We are going to understand how the Indian agriculture is being affected because of climate change and how we can build on the first Green Revolution by focusing on elements, thereby making it a part of Green Revolution 2.0. The next topic to be discussed is the Manifesto for Nari Shakti. Nari Shakti, you mean women empowerment. Now students, in order to ensure that the women are empowered, we need to understand the issues confronting or afflicting the status of women, and thereby we need to address it so as to ensure that the position of women undergoes a momentous shift. Students, the third topic to discuss is the Viksit must be inclusive, which means Viksit you mean development. Development has to be inclusive. Now students, under this we are going to discuss the Viksit Bharat Initiative 2047. Which are the policies or objectives under Viksit Bharat is something that we are going to discuss. At the same time, we have to ensure that in order to see India grow and scale new heights, it is important that we need to include each and every section of the society. So this is what we shall be discussing in the third topic. The fourth topic, students, speaks about the issue surrounding the Katchat Island. The current government is criticizing the Congress government. Why? Because the Congress government gave up their claims or gave up India's claims over Katchat Island, right? And the fifth topic to be discussed is the government of India's, or for that matter, the Indian Army's efforts to boost the infrastructure along the bordering regions. And we'll understand why it is important to boost the infrastructure along the bordering regions, right? And finally, in the last, we are going to discuss the prelims and mains based questions so that you get an holistic understanding or idea of the type of questions asked in the UPSC examination. So students, let's get started. So students, the first topic to discuss is the topic on pointers from wheat. Now this article focuses on Green Revolution 1 and how we can make changes or how we can build from Green Revolution, the first Green Revolution, and focus more on the Green Revolution 2.0. That is by building on the first Green Revolution. Now, how is it important from the exam's perspective? For example, the Green Revolution again is a topic under the environment and ecology segment, right? Then we also have this climate change and crop yield, which falls under GS paper 3. Under Indian economy, we have this particular subtopic in the name, major cropping pattern in various parts of the country and food security. So this topic is important from GS paper 3's perspective. So let's begin. So a question can be asked from this particular topic, and the question can be in the form of, let's say, what are the major reasons for declining rice and wheat yield in the cropping system? Now, we know that India is heavily dependent on rice and wheat, but with the passage of time, we get to see that the yield subsequently is reducing. How crop diversification? So in order to get rid of the problem, how crop diversification helps to stabilize the yield of the crop in the system. So this is a question asked for 15 marks, that is 250 words in the year 2017. So such are the types of questions that can be asked in the examination, and based on the types of questions that are asked in the examination, you need to channelize your resources, energy, so as to meet the demands of the examination. So let's get started. Now students, the next agriculture revolution, that is Green Revolution 2.0. It should emphasize on input efficiency. We'll understand more about input efficiency, which means the Green Revolution 2.0 should focus more on input efficiency and developing climate resilient crop varieties. So this is the objective of Green Revolution 2.0. But before understanding what is the objective of Green Revolution 2.0, students, we need to understand what is Green Revolution, the first Green Revolution, and Green Revolution 2.0. Now, what is Green Revolution? First Green Revolution. Now, Green Revolution, the first Green Revolution, emphasized on increasing production of food grains using high yield variety crops, using HYV seeds. So, this was the focus of the first Green Revolution, which was prevalent or which was put into practice in the 1970s and the 80s, right? The Green Revolution 2.2, right? It builds on the first Green Revolution, and the Green Revolution 2.0 focuses more on the climate change, resource depletion, and environment sustainability and food security. See, the objective of Green Revolution 1 or the first Green Revolution to make India self-sufficient. Why? Because India was importing basic crop items or basic crops like rice and wheat from foreign countries. So India wanted to be a self-sufficient country, and that's the reason India realized and India focused on making India a self-sufficient country, and so India invested in the first Green Revolution. The second Green Revolution tries to build upon the first Green Revolution by addressing the challenges that the agriculture sector is facing in terms of the climate change and the resource depletion likewise, right? Now, if we have to focus on climate change, or let's say Green Revolution 2.0, we need to understand how the climate change is impacting the agriculture of our country. Now, the climate change impact. Now, students, recently there's a news in the article stating that the wheat crop, so the recent wheat crop losses, it highlights the increasing vulnerability and shows how Indian agriculture is susceptible to climate change. The high temperatures at various growth stages are significantly impacting the yields of the crops. For example, it affects various stages of growth from sowing to harvesting, leading to lower yields and crop losses. So, at various for any crop to grow, it is very important that every stage of the crop growth has to be nurtured accordingly. But now, because of the varying climate changes or because of varying temperatures, each and every stage is being affected, leading to loss in the agriculture sector or less yields. Then the wheat harvest outlook. Now, students, if we look at the northern region, for example, Punjab, Haryana, UP and Bihar, the season's wheat harvest looks promising. But if we look at the yields in the central India, for example, MP, Gujarat and Maharashtra, the yields are lower. So this is a big concern that our country is facing, and we have to address such challenges. Let's try to know more about the crop wheat. For example, the main food crop in northern and the northwestern regions in India is wheat. It's cultivated during the Rabi season. Then it requires a cool growing season and bright sunshine during the ripening phase. Then the optimal annual temperature that is required is 50 to 75 centimeter, which should be evenly distributed over the growing period. And which are the wheat growing zones? For example, the Ganga Satluj plains in the northwest, the black soil region of the Deccan, and the major wheat producing states are Punjab, Haryana, UP, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar and Rajasthan. Now, this can be important for your prelims. Such factual information will be important for your prelims. So, make a note of all the important points related to each and every crop or major crops of our country. Now, focus on Green Revolution 2.0. The Green Revolution, the first Green Revolution was partially successful. And the Green Revolution 2.0 tries to build upon the first Green Revolution by focusing on input use efficiency, which means the focus of Green Revolution 2.0 should prioritize input use efficiency, which it should involve producing more output from the same or even fewer quantities of water, nutrients and energy, which means the input cost should be reduced. The input cost should be reduced and the focus should be more on enhancing the output or productivity by using few or minimal resources required. Then climate resilience. Now, building climate resilience is crucial. Now, this includes developing drought resilient and heat tolerant wheat varieties. We know we have this genetic crops or genetically modified crops. So we can leverage the technology to ensure that the crops grown in our country are heat tolerant and drought resilient, right? Now, with the steps taken by the government of India to ensure that the agriculture sector is in a position to tackle the changes or tackle the challenges brought in by the climate. For example, the first one is National Action Plan on Climate Change, which provides a policy framework for climate action. The second is National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture, which aims for the climate resilient agriculture. Then, per drop, more crop. It promotes water use efficiency through micro irrigation technologies like, let's say, drip irrigation. And then we have Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, which focuses on providing insurance in case the crop fails because of the natural disasters like, let's say, floods, or let's say cyclones, or let's say earthquake. Then we have National Innovations in Climate Resilient Agriculture. Now, this promotes climate resilient agriculture practices through research and capacity building. So, these are some of the steps that you are expected to mention in your answer when it comes to Indian agriculture. So, the way forward, or the way of how we need to deal with the challenges should be two front. One is the long-term objectives and the second one is the short-term objectives. For example, when it comes to long-term objectives, India needs to invest more in breeding for climate change adaptation, which means as the climate is changing, we have to adapt as per the changing climate. So, this involves developing crop varieties that are responsive to changing climatic conditions. Then, at the same time, global market dynamics. Now, as I told you, if we are to ensure the growth in the agriculture sector, then we have to ensure that the markets of a country, or let's say the products or the food crops, are integrated with the global market. Whichever crops that we produce or grow in our country should be integrated not only domestically but also globally. And for the very same, the government of India should help the farmers so that the farmers are enabled, empowered, so as to ensure that their crops can be brought into competition, competed with the crops from different parts of the country, and ensure that more and more crops are exported to different parts of the country, thereby ensuring the growth of the farmers and thus the growth of our country. And we can also ensure that the percentage of agriculture in the overall GDP increases. So, the next topic that we shall be discussing is the topic on Nari Shakti, which means to ensure that the women are empowered. What all steps do we need to take to ensure the growth of women? Now, how is topic important for UPSC? The relevance of this topic for UPSC. Now, students, in UPSC syllabus, we have a topic named women empowerment. Now, women empowerment falls in GS1 as well as GS2. In GS1, we have a subject called Society, Indian Society, and in GS2, we have a subject called Governance. Under Governance, we have a subtopic called Government Policies and Interventions for Development. And that's the reason this topic is important for the UPSC examination. Now, let's try to go through a previous question in order to understand the type of questions or question that can be asked. For example, a focus on improving the condition of women of India can immensely contribute to poverty alleviation discuss, which means the growth of women is directly proportional to poverty alleviation, that is reduction of poverty. As a reason, we need to focus on empowerment of women. Now, students, we know that the elections are around the corner, isn't it? And as the elections are around the corner, students, it is important that we need to understand the status of women. The status of women in the political landscape of a country, that is a representation of women that's in the parliament, in the Lok Sabha, in the local elections or local election bodies, etc. Because if our country has to grow truly, then we need to ensure that the women need to be also empowered. Why? Because the women constitute close to 50% of the population, which means the development would be meaningful, inclusive only when the women are empowered, right? Now, students, the concept of Nari Shakti. Now, Indian civilization has always accorded equal importance to both men and women, right? So, the concept of Nari Shakti can be dated back to the Indian civilization time, right? The concept of Nari Shakti, students, is rooted in the divine form or divine feminine form, which symbolizes creation, maintenance, and balance in the universe. But students, before we understand the necessary policy interventions, it is important to understand the issues that the women are facing. For example, the first one is the economic empowerment, the gender wage gap, which means the disparity in terms of wages the men and women are provided. Then the limited access to economic opportunities, that is jobs. And then the equal representation in the leadership positions. For example, of all the ministers that we have in our country, that is the central government or let's say the state government, the representation of women is minuscule, despite the fact that women are close to 50% of our population, right? And what solution can we think of? For example, we have to implement policies to ensure equal pay for equal work. We have to make it very, very stringent, mandatory to ensure there's equal pay for equal work. We have to promote women's entrepreneurship through access to finance and training, which means we need to inculcate the qualities of training, or we need to train the women, we need to finance them, we need to train them how to run a business so that we ensure that the women are empowered. At the same time, we have to create affirmative action. Now, affirmative action, that is by providing reservation. For example, the reservation bill that was passed in the parliament is a right step. Next, initiatives like Mudra Yojana. Now, Mudra Yojana, under this Mudra Yojana, funds are given to the women so that the women can focus on the business, and the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. Such initiatives have been instrumental in empowering millions of women, which have helped the women to lead a dignified life. At the same time, the political parties must also integrate their gender budgets, which means, students, the budget has to be allocated keeping into mind that the budget should also be sanctioned for the empowerment or growth of women, which means they should be gender specific budget, right? Then gender disaggregated data analysis, which means whenever we are analyzing the data, we also have to ensure that the data has to be disaggregated, which means there should be a separate column for men, there should be a separate column for women, and we have to analyze the impact of the policies or laws for the benefit of women. This we can do by disaggregating the data that we collect. The next challenge that the women face is with respect to the socio-culture barriers. For example, deep-rooted gender norms and stereotypes. Now, women are always subject to stereotype. For example, the society norm or notion is that women should be confined to the four walls of the house. The women are best suited to be in the house to do the household chores. Now, such type of stereotypes need to be busted. We have to inculcate training in the minds of the society, or we to educate the society to break free from the stereotypes associated with women. For example, what solution we can think of? For example, challenging the patriarchal thought process, attitudes through education and media awareness campaigns. Engage men and boys as allies in promoting. At the same time, we have to focus that the men or the boys need to be educated so that both men and women together can promote or can break free from the stereotypes. Then you have to empower the grassroots women's organization. For example, we have these self-help groups, right? And we have many such women-centric groups, and the government of India or the government of the state has to focus on empowering such organizations led by the women, all right? So this solutions we can think of. Then the next is education and skill development. Again, the issue lies with respect to disparity in education attainment and limited access to skill developmental opportunities, which means again, because of lack of access, the women unfortunately do not get quality education, and that's the reason the skill enhancement is also very poor. That's the reason we have to invest in the girls' education. How? By building schools, by providing scholarships, and addressing the socio-cultural barriers to girls' education. For example, even in the 21st century, some parts of our country do not encourage that the women be educated, or women should learn to read and write, thus empower her life as well as her family's life. Then we have to establish vocational training programs tailored to the women's needs and promote lifelong learning opportunities. The next is the health and the reproductive rights. For example, now, what is the issue associated with this particular point? Inadequate access to healthcare services. For example, maternal mortality and the lack of reproductive rights. Now, what is lack of reproductive rights? For example, women in our country are not allowed to take decisions, right? The rights are limited because of the patriarchal attitude or patriarchal notion. Now, we need to get rid of this attitude or of this particular feeling. And for that, we have to strengthen the healthcare infrastructure, especially in the rural areas, to ensure affordable and accessible healthcare services. Then we have to also promote comprehensive sex education and family planning services to empower women to make informed choices about reproductive health. So again, if you look at all the issues, somehow you get to realize that education lies at the very core in order to get rid of the issues that the women are facing. Then policies like Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, right? Or let's say the Ayushman Bharat, right? Which provides health insurance to the women. At the same time, the Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan, which means schemes meant for the pregnant women. Now, such policies can help women to empower, right? In the gender-based violence, now we often get to read in the newspaper and see the social media how women every day are subject to abuse, be it domestic abuse, be it sexual harassment and human trafficking for the sake of prostitution. So we need to address such issues. How do we address such issues? By enforcing strict laws and ensure swift justice for perpetrators. That is, the ones who are involved in the heinous crime should be punished harshly. Then we also need to provide support services, including shelters and counseling for survivors. It is important to rehabilitate the victims. And then we also need to focus on promoting gender equality and respectful relationship through education and awareness campaigns. That is, there should be respect in a relationship, right? Then, while legislative initiatives, for example, Triple Talaq Bill, have upheld the dignity of Muslim women, at the same time, a uniform civil code, which will ensure that the rights given to men and women are equal, should be implemented as quick as possible. Now, as the political landscape evolves, there's a need for safe public spaces, which means we need to create that environment, that space wherein the women can step out of their homes without fearing any external factors or influences, so that the women ensures her own growth. And then the last is political participation and leadership. Unfortunately, the women are underrepresented in the political landscape. The solution, we can ensure that the women are represented. How? For example, the recently brought bill, the reservation bill for the women, is a step in the right direction. We have to ensure that the women are represented at all levels, be it the central government, be it the state government, or be the local government, because only the women can think. It's not that the only women can think better for the women, but having women would ensure that all the needs that a woman goes through is well considered, documented, and a solution can be made for the very same. So, again, to conclude, realizing women's empowerment requires multi-dimensional approach. Now, if we want to get rid of the issues that the women are facing, we have to ensure that the political, social, economic, education, health, and legal aspects are taken into consideration. So, if India has to grow by leap and bounds, it is very important that the 50% of the society which constitute women should be empowered, right? Students, the next topic that we shall be discussing is the topic Viksit must be inclusive. What is Viksit? Viksit, you mean development, and development must be inclusive, which means whenever the government of India is focusing on developing a country, the government has to take into considerations each and every section of the society, right? So this is what the article or the name of the topic means. Now let us try to understand various dimensions associated with this article. Now let's understand how it is important for the UPSC examination. Now, First of all, it is important to understand what is this Viksit Bharat 2047 initiative, which means you need to understand the objectives under the Viksit Bharat 2047. The next, we'll try to understand the recent trend with respect to agriculture's contribution in the GDP, right? Next, we are going to understand the policies undertaken by the government of India to realize the vision of Viksit Bharat 2047 in agriculture, right? So these are the dimensions that we are going to understand under this topic. Now, students, when it comes to the syllabus, now again, it's very important to link the article or the topic that you study with the GS syllabus. Now, in GS paper 3, we have a topic named Indian Agriculture, and under Indian Agriculture, we have this topic called Marketing of Agriculture Produce and Constraints Related to them, right? So this falls under GS paper 3. Let's understand the type of question that can be asked in the UPSC examination as it was asked in the year 2016. Now, since whenever you read any topic, do not try to expect a question directly from the topic. The UPSC has a tendency to club 2 to 3 topics or blend 2 to 3 topics and ask a question. For example, here the question is asking you the question expects you to know about the Green India mission of the government of India, right? So that's the reason having a holistic understanding is very, very important. Now, let us try to understand the context of the article. Now, students, we know that the climate change is affecting the agriculture, isn't it so? And that's the reason, as the climate change is affecting the growth or productivity of agriculture, it is important for the government of India to evolve with a comprehensive policy and institutional reforms. That is, the government of India has to formulate a comprehensive policy and institutional reforms to enhance the sector's resilience and productivity, which should align with the Viksit Bharat initiative of 2047, right? As the climate is affecting the agriculture, the government of India has to be proactive, and the government of India has to come up with a comprehensive policy dealing with each and every dimension related to Indian agriculture so as to fulfill the vision of Viksit Bharat 2047. But before we understand the various dimensions of the topic, it's important to understand what is this Viksit Bharat. Now, what is the Viksit Bharat? The vision of Viksit Bharat is prosperous nation, that we want that India should be a prosperous nation, isn't it so? Then how did India become a prosperous nation? By investing in the modern infrastructure and ensuring that each and every section of the society is given equal opportunity. This is the vision of Viksit Bharat 2047. And which are the goals? For example, the first one is related to the economic growth, which means the economic growth should be resilient. Now, what do you mean by resilient? That is, it should be in a position to withstand the shocks and the pressures of the global market, right? At the same time, the economy should be innovative. That is, we need to evolve various methods, technologies through which we ensure that the economy of a country rises and grows. Okay? The second one is the environment sustainability. Now, while focusing on development, if we ignore the environmental factor, it's going to lead to a catastrophe. And that's the reason the development has to ensure that the development should also take into consideration the environmental factor. That is, the development or the economic development should be sustainable. Then the social progress, which means the development should also take into consideration some of the weaker sections of the society, like, let's say, tribals, right? So which means the development should be inclusive, just, and it should cater to the diverse demands of the diverse society, right? Then good governance. Again, the good governance, no matter how good you frame a policy or how good you make a law, all depends on how the law or policy is implemented, which means we need to focus on the elements of good governance, right? And then we also need to focus on the overall policy. So these are the goals under Viksit Bharat 2047. Now, students, let us also try to understand the facts and trends associated with the Indian agriculture. Now, the average annual growth rate of the agriculture GDP from 1991 onwards to 2023-2024 is just 3.3%, which means since the post-liberalization era until now, the growth, annual growth has been just 3.3%, vis-a-vis the overall growth of 6.1%. Now, why this number is worrying is because that agriculture is a sector that employs around 45% of India's working population, and it just contributes around 18% to the GDP. So 45%, near to 50% of the population is employed in agriculture, but it hardly contributes 18% to the overall GDP. That's the reason our efforts or the aim of the policies or laws should be to increase the percentage of GDP in the agriculture, right? Now, which are the impediments? Now, we have understood the objectives or the goals under the Viksit Bharat in Indian agriculture. So, which are the impediments that we need to take into consideration or get rid of to ensure that the objectives under Viksit Bharat get fulfilled? The first one, for example, the agriculture sector faces challenges. Which challenges? For example, the need for increased productivity, which means per acre of land should yield more productivity. Then reduce water consumption. Because of scarcity of water, we also need to focus on innovation, technologies through which the water consumption can be reduced. Then the groundwater recharge, the soil degradation prevention, and the curtailment of greenhouse gas emissions. So these are some of the challenges that we need to encounter, we need to face and find solutions, sustainable solution to deal with the agriculture problems. Now, the disparity in growth rates between the overall GDP and the agriculture GDP could lead to agriculture contributing only 7 to 8% to the GDP by 2047. Which means, students, if you are not going to address these issues, which means that by 2047, agriculture as a sector could only contribute 7 to 8%. And so it is important to eliminate or get rid of the challenges. Isn't it so? Now, which are the external factors? For example, these are factors that we can take care of. But what about the external factors like unseasonal rains? Because of climate change, we are getting to see or we are witnessing unseasonal rains. The risk of extreme weather events like cyclone, etc. Due to global warming, it threatens the agriculture stability. These are the challenges. Then the existing policies and crisis measures, for example, like the MSP or the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. These are the existing policies reminiscent of strategies from the 60s, which means the strategies that we are following is somewhat similar to what we were practicing or following in the 60s. Now, such policies need to undergo a momentous shift. So, students, these are the impediments, these are the challenges, students, that we need to address in order to ensure that we get rid of the challenges so as to fulfill the objective under Viksit Bharat 2047. So, which are the policy changes required? For example, we need to rationalize food and fertilizer subsidies. Now, students, we know that the subsidies, right, has become a vote blank, which means before the elections, let's say the elections to the Lok Sabha or the state elections, you get to see the political parties, they subsidize the agriculture input. It is not wrong to subsidize the agriculture input, but relying whole and soul on the subsidies is going to be detrimental to the overall agriculture growth, right? And that's the reason, students, it is important that we focus on eliminating or reducing the subsidies so that we can save the money and invest it further in the research and development. Because, students, if we have to ensure that the agriculture sector grows, we have to ensure that for innovation, we need money. So, money needs to be poured in the R&D department so that we come up with unique innovations to get rid of the challenges that we are facing. For example, let's say Israel. Now, Israel, despite the fact that the land is not conducive for agriculture, has come up with innovative ideas which is helping Israel as a country to be self-sufficient. So, we have to invest massively in the India's R&D. Okay. The next is that we can focus on is to promote the water saving techniques like drip irrigation or let's say mulching. Now, what is this mulching? Now, mulching is a technique wherein the soil surface is covered around the plants to ensure retain or to ensure that the moisture is retained, right? So this is mulching. So we have to promote water saving techniques, or let's say for that matter, the soil and water recharge initiatives like land conservation, green roofs, and also we need to shift towards high value agriculture with value chain approach. This is a change that we need to see and we need to ensure that it gets implemented. Then we have to develop policies and institutions to enable farmers to assess national and international markets. See, a farmer can be self-sufficient only when he ensures that the goods that he produces or the crops that he produces should integrate with the market. For that, the access to the market is very, very important. Only when a farmer ensures that his goods or his crops can be accessed not only to the national market but also to the international market, he can ensure that he can help his family or his growth. For that, the country has to help the farmers to ensure that the farmers become self-sufficient by helping the farmers to integrate their crops with the national and the international market. So this is what we need to focus and we need to change. So these are the policy changes that we need. Now again, way forward, we have to enhance the agriculture R&D innovation, which we already have discussed, the extension services to boost productivity and sustainability. Then we have to shift to high value agriculture and develop supply chains from plate to plow, right? Which means we need to ensure that the supply chain, right from the input to output, the supply chain has to be seamless. Then facilitating market access for farmers both domestically and globally, which means we have to ensure that the products of the farmers get integrated with the domestic and the global market through the cooperatives, the food processing units, and the digital. And then we have to ensure that the development in agriculture should be demand driven, which means there has to be demand in the market. It should be a demand driven agriculture growth or agriculture model, and ensure that the policy reforms support the inclusive growth, that is the rich as well as poor people should be benefited, enabling all the segments of the population, all the sections to benefit in Viksit Bharat 2047, which means by 2047 we have to ensure that our country grows holistically, right? Students, the next topic that we shall be discussing is the issue surrounding the Katchat Island. So what exactly is this topic? Let's try to understand. Before that, let's try to understand the importance of this examination of this topic for examination. For the UPSC examination, for example, this topic or this island is important for GS paper 2. In GS paper 2, we have a subject named IR, International Relations, and under International Relations, we have the subtopic named Bilateral Relations, which means India and her neighboring relations, right? And then from the prelims perspective, this topic is important under current events of national and international importance. So let's begin and let's try to understand more about the island first before we dwell into the issue. Now again, a question can be expected of this type. For example, they might ask you the locations and they might ask you to match the location with the country in which it falls, right? So let's start. So this is the type of question that one can expect from such map-based topics. Now, the context is that the BJP government, which is in power, is accusing the Congress government for relinquishing its claim over the Katchat island. Now, this island was given to Sri Lanka, and that's the reason now the current government, BJP, is accusing the Congress government for relinquishing, for giving up its claim over a very strategic and important island, that is Katchat. So let's try to understand more about the Katchat island first. Now students, Katchat island is uninhabited island which is located in the Park Strait, which lies between India and Sri Lanka. Why is it uninhabited? Because there's no source of drinking water. That's the reason it is uninhabited, right? Now, it is towards the northeast of Rameshwaram. So this is Rameshwaram and this is the Katchat island. So this Katchat island was formed in the 14th century due to an volcanic eruption. This island separates the Tamil Nadu state of India from the northern province of Sri Lanka. Students, this island holds cultural importance, is important culturally. Why? It is important culturally for both the Indian as well as the Sri Lankan fishermen, because the Indian and the Sri Lankan fishermen have been fishing on this water or this water since centuries, right? So this is important for both the countries. Now students, the island and its surrounding maritime environment are part of the rich biodiversity of the Park Strait. So this is the importance of the Katchat Island, and as the Katchat Island is in the news, you are expected a question from this particular topic. Now let's try to understand the reasons behind the ongoing debate. Now students, as I told you that the Indian and Sri Lankan fishermen have been fishing over this water since centuries. But then students, in 1974, Indira Gandhi government made attempts to settle the maritime border between India and Sri Lanka. Now, there was no international boundary between India and Sri Lanka. Indira Gandhi decided to resolve the maritime border in 1974. And that's the reason in what came to be known as the Indo-Sri Lankan Maritime Agreement. The Indira Gandhi government gave away Katchat Island to Sri Lanka, which means in the year 1974, international maritime boundary was decided between India and Sri Lanka, and this line was drawn in such a manner that the Katchat Island fell on the Sri Lankan side. The 1976 agreement, the agreement which was signed in the year 1976, students, it restricted the Indian fishermen from entering the island for fishing, which means now the Indian fishermen could not enter the waters for fishing. Now, the problem emerged only after the maritime agreement. Until 1976, there was no problem as such. Why? Because both the Indian and the Sri Lankan fishermen were fishing on this water. Now, the problem emerged. Why? Because the Sri Lankan fishermen accused the Indian fishermen of using mechanized trawlers, sophisticated technology, so that they can fish fishes from deep waters. Right? And that's the reason the Sri Lankan fishermen are unable to catch the fishes. Now, students, the fishermen problem is a livelihood issue for both the Indian and the Sri Lankan fishermen. Now, as the fishes along the coast of Tamil Nadu have been exhausted, the Indian fishermen are forced to enter the deep waters and catch fishes so that they can sustain their livelihood. Unfortunately, this is creating a big problem for both India and Sri Lanka. Why? Because it is often seen that the Indian fishermen are caught by the Sri Lankan Navy, and the Indian fishermen have to spend a major part of their life behind the prisons. Same is the case with the Sri Lankan fishermen who enter the Indian waters and are caught by the Indian Navy. Now, this has become a bone of contention for both India and Sri Lanka. Now, students, the Indian fishermen have been using, or they claim that they have been using this water since centuries. They have been using this island for the purpose of drying nets and for many other activities. But now, as the usage of this island has been restricted, it is creating livelihood issue to both the Indian and the Sri Lankan fishermen. Right? This is the issue surrounding the Katchat Island, and now the government is blaming the Congress for giving up its claim on the Katchat Island by giving this island to Sri Lanka. So this is the issue, and this is about the Katchat Island. Now students, in order to resolve the dispute over the Katchat Island, both India and Sri Lanka had established joint working group in the year 2016. Now this joint working group has members from both the India and Sri Lanka. Now the members also come from the fishing community. So this group is trying to resolve the dispute between both India and Sri Lanka. So this is the issue. I hope students you have understood the issues surrounding the Katchat Island. Students, the next topic that we shall be focusing is the Army's efforts to ramp up infrastructure along the bordering regions with China. Not only with China, but also with Pakistan, with Nepal, with Bhutan, etc. So let's try to understand more of the topic. Now, students, this issue or this topic is important from internal security's perspective. Now, in GS paper 3, we have subject named internal security, and under internal security, we have a subtopic named security challenges and their management in bordering areas. And for prelims, again, it's important from the current events of national and international importance. So, the relevance of this topic is from the border infrastructure, efforts taken by the government of India to boost the infrastructure along the bordering regions. So, let's try to know more of the topic. Now, such type of question can be expected in the examination. For example, here the question is Belt and Road Initiative sometimes mentioned in the news in the context of the affairs of, these are the 4 options, right? And the correct answer for this should be D, China. Now, what is the context? Now, there's buzz of activity, which means there are a lot of activities taking place in the state beyond the calming area as India speeds up efforts to improve infrastructure and connectivity. Building of bridges and military facilities has military and civilian advantages, boosting tourism and quickening the army's movements. Now, we'll try to understand why the army is boosting the infrastructure along the bordering regions. Now, background. Now, Kibitu is in the news. Why? Because it is one of the easternmost villages in the Anjao district of Arunachal Pradesh, which is very close to the line of actual control. Now, this is around 7 kilometers from the line of actual control. Now, students, we should know that this line of actual control is the border which demarcates between India and China. Line of control demarcates the border between India and China in the easternmost region, that is the state of Arunachal Pradesh. This village is home to the Mere tribe and has around 130 residents. Now, students, again, this tribe, the name of the tribe is important from the prelims perspective, the Mere tribe. So, please remember the name of this tribe. Now, this village which Kibitu village has witnessed upgrades in the primary health centers, teacher residences and aligning with the central government's Vibrant Village Program. Now, what exactly is this Vibrant Village Program, students? Now, this Vibrant Village Program was launched to develop around 3,000 villages across the bordering states. It includes Arunachal Pradesh as well, with a budget of close to 5,000 crore. It aims to improve the quality of life, infrastructure and reverse out migration in these villages. For example, the people of these villages are migrating to the major centers. Why? For the sake of employment, for the sake of education. Now, the government of India is ensuring that the villages be developed so that the out migration stops. Now, such villages along the bordering regions have received significant funding for development under the Vibrant Village Program. Now, students, it is important to understand why the government of India is investing so much in the bordering regions. Students, we know that the Galwan clash, the Yangtze clash that happened in the year 2020, the Doklam clash that happened in the year 2017 has made India to focus to boost and beef the infrastructure along the bordering regions. Why? Because if the infrastructure is not available, and let's assume that India or China attacks India and there's a war between India and China, we need to have infrastructure, we need to have roads, we need to have airstrips, we need to have helipads so that the Indian army troops can be quickly mobilized in no time and can tackle the challenges or can tackle the invading forces. There's a reason focusing on infrastructure is very, very, very important. But students, in order to win a war, the war is usually or mostly won through intelligence. And for intelligence, it is very important that we need to win the confidence of people who live along the bordering regions. There can be no substitute to human intelligence. Human intelligence is considered to be the best form of intelligence. No technology can ever replace human intelligence. And that's the reason, to win the confidence of the people, the government of India is investing to develop the villages so that they can win the confidence of people. And these people can act as human intelligence to report the ongoing activities along the bordering regions so that we can take quick and timely measures to stop the invading forces and make ourselves prepared in the eventuality of a war, isn't it? That's the reason the government of India has been focusing more on the infrastructure. For example, security. Now, for the sake of security development, the army has focused on construction of bridges, helipads, and the road infrastructure, right? And for example, we have constructed 34 new bridges in between 2020 and 2023, along with 3 additional bridges under construction, all of which are of class 70. Now, this class 70 again can be asked in the examination. Class 70 is a classification, means these bridges can carry loads of 70 tons or more, which is crucial for military logistics and transportation. For example, we can carry tankers, or let's say the air missile system, right? So these are heavy equipment. So we are constructing bridges that can take the load of tankers and the anti-craft missiles as well, right? Then again, Trans-Arunachal Highway, a significant project that spans approximately 2,500 kilometers, designed to improve connectivity across the length of Arunachal Pradesh. Why? So as to facilitate easier movement of people and goods. So these are some of the examples of security development. So whenever you focus on security development or write on security development, it is important to mention such examples. Then the Frontier Highway, an almost 2,000 kilometer long new Frontier Highway, is being constructed to facilitate inter-valley movement starting from Bomdila in the west and ending in Vijayanagar area along the India-Myanmar border. So these are the examples of border security development. Then we have infrastructure development. As I told you, in order to win the confidence of the people, we have to ensure that the people should be helped so that they can act as human intelligence. And that's the reason the Indian Army has played a crucial role in the administration and development of Arunachal Pradesh by focusing on major infrastructure projects, which include, just now we discussed, the Trans-Arunachal Highway, New Frontier Highway. Then the efforts are also being taken to boost tourism through the Seema Darshan project. Now, this Seema Darshan project, students, is an initiative undertaken by the Home Ministry to ensure to boost the tourism. The government is focusing on the infrastructure, is helping the villages so that people from different parts of the country can see the people living along the bordering regions, understand the challenges they are facing, and subsequently the government of India also intends to boost tourism along the bordering regions. And that's the reason the government of India is helping the people so that these people can start their own businesses so that the overall life gets enhanced and empowered. For example, via Operation Sadbhavna, now Army has allocated funds for developmental projects under the Operation Sadbhavna and outreach activities in the forward areas. For example, infrastructure development, education, environment, conservation, contributing to the overall security infrastructure. I hope, students, you have understood this topic on border management. Students, now let us discuss few prelims and means based questions so that you get an idea of the type of questions that can be asked in the examination. So let's get started. Question number 1, the term gender disaggregated data analysis refers to. Now, we discussed already that gender disaggregated means that you basically have the classification of men and women, right? So the term gender disaggregated data analysis refers to methods to provide visibility into how policies target impacts women and girls. Yes, this has to be the correct answer. That is option A is the correct answer. Now, the next question. Consider the following statements. A strategy to achieve equality between women and men by focusing on how public resources are collected and spent is known as gender budgeting. Exactly, this is what we understand by gender budgeting. The ultimate purpose is to achieve equality between men and women by ensuring that the resources are allocated to both men and women, right? And in India, the gender budget statement was first introduced in the budget of 2005 and 6. Yes, this too is correct. So option C has to be the correct answer. The next question, students. Agriculture engages about 45% of India's working population as of 2022-2023, yet it contributes only 18%. Yes, this is very true, right? And then ENAM, that is Electronic NAM, that is National Agriculture Market, aims to integrate the APMC mandis across the country to facilitate online trading of agriculture commodities. Now students, this eNAM platform, it facilitates online trading of agriculture commodities. Yes, even this statement is correct. Option C has to be the correct answer. The fourth question, consider the following statements about the Katchat Island. It's an uninhabited area located in the Bay of Bengal. This is incorrect, right? Then it's located in the Park Strait. The sovereignty of Katchat Island was transferred from India to Sri Lanka in 74, correct? The island is a popular tourist destination due to its rich biodiversity and well-preserved natural. No, this is incorrect, students. Right? It's not a popular tourist destination. Indian fishermen allowed to fish around Katchat without a visa as per the agreement between India and Sri Lanka. Right? So even this is correct. They were allowed to fish. Right? So which of the following statements given above are correct? So answer has to be B and 2, and that is 2 and 4. That is option B has to be the correct answer. The next question. Kibithu is one of the easternmost villages in the Arunachal Pradesh, located close to LAC. Yes, this is correct. The Vibrant Village program with an outlay of 4,800 crore aims to develop the border villages. True. Under the Vibrant Village program, this village has been allotted funds for infrastructure. Very true. Then the Trans-Arunachal Highway, once completed, will facilitate inter-valley movement and enhance. Very true. It seems that all the 4 statements are correct, which means option D has to be the correct answer. Now students, a question for UPSC means, how does climate change impact wheat yield and what measures can be taken to enhance wheat productivity despite changing environment conditions? Now students, when it comes to means-based question, there are 3 parts of the answer. One is the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Now students, in the introduction, you have to mention how the climate change is affecting the Indian agriculture, right? How with time the agriculture yield has reduced, has gone down. This is what you need to mention in the introduction. And then in the body, you need to mention how the Indian agriculture is affected because of numerous challenges, right? You have to understand, or you have to mention the dimensions which is affecting the Indian agriculture. For example, identify specific climatic factors, right? For example, the temperature variations, erratic rainfall patterns, extreme weather events, then how it impacts the wheat productivity, especially the central part of India is being affected because of the variations in the climate, then the mitigation measures. Then you also need to mention that how can we get rid of the challenges that the Indian agriculture is facing, right? Because 45% of the Indian population is reliant, dependent on the Indian agriculture, right? So you need to also focus on the mitigation measures. For example, the land conservation practices, the soil conservation techniques, etc. Policy interventions, how the government of India can intervene, for example, via the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. And then climate change is not only confined to India, which means we have to work on a global scale to reduce the impacts of climate change. So these are the dimensions that you need to mention in the answer. So friends, I hope you understood how you need to prepare for the UPSC examination, how you need to read the content, how you need to read the topic and the expected questions in the UPSC examination. So students, that's the end of our DNA discussion. I hope students, the discussion has helped to enhance your knowledge. Students, for more such interesting updates, interesting topics, do like, share and subscribe Narayana IS. Thank you.